you
Chandler.
doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm
Oh,
good.
I love you got the poster. How cool is that?
It's
I
awesome.
love
Yes,
it.
it is. Yes, and I gotta say this movie was very intense, and I absolutely loved it because the way the whole story was structured, it was so intriguing to see where this film was gonna keep going, where it was gonna go. I kept questioning it, like, where is this gonna end up? How is this gonna
Uh,
go? And it was
I
unraveling as it
love
went on.
hearing that. Yeah, I'm really curious about the response. It wasn't the intention is not to be divisive, but the point of to explore what that's like. So, but yeah, I think it's definitely very loaded. We wrote it during the pandemic before a lot of the last 5 years. So I think it's going to be a very visceral experience for people, and hopefully they'll see themselves or their neighbors and their uncle that comes for Thanksgiving, and will identify with it, no matter where they fall on the political spectrum. That's kind of the intention behind it.
So you mentioned that you wrote this during the pandemic. What was the inspiration how did the story come about from you and Jan in terms of, you know, collaborating on this, and what was the inspiration behind this film?
So we were working together. He had read a spec that I wrote about Fritz Lang and the making of M, actually, and he really responded to it. So we had a conversation, and he wanted to come on board. And at some point through, after he made, I guess, The Hater, he did Corpus Christi. I met him when he had just made Corpus Christi, and he had told me that there was a story that he really wanted to do as his next film, and he kind of talked about, more kind of like the goal of the film in the end, being very contained, and there were certain bit of guardrails about how we were telling it, but otherwise it was pretty open-ended what he wanted to do. That scared me to death, but I said, let me go off and think about that. And then a couple of things started to appear in my imagination. I got very excited about it, and then knew I could do it because I certainly didn't want to take it on if I couldn't. And came back and pitched him a couple of things, which he really responded to. And then the idea was that we were going to get together and talk about it in the same room. And the pandemic broke out. So then we didn't know what was going to happen, right? It was
Right.
terrifying. And we were, instead of developing and doing the math on structure, we were talking about viruses going global and living in bubbles. And we were also seeing other viruses, like, certain populist movements springing up, whether it was in France or, Italy, or so all these conversations kind of boil down to, kind of, you can see those inspirations within the film. But he really wanted to tell a civil war within a family, something that he felt, obviously Poland has experienced much, it's much more in their current history, or, not so 81, but I think, for a lot of, foreigners, they definitely look to America as a certain sort of stable democracy. And I think everyone was becoming very fascinated by what they were seeing during the pandemic, with breaking off on how we feel about science, and,
Yeah.
and inoculations. And so this is, I think this is his inspiration, why he wanted to do it with an American family. So, but then I will tell you that at some point we had all those conversations. I said, let me go off and do big character bios and do a complete treatment for the story. And then we were really off to the races, and it was very liberating to take just great conversations and then boil them down into a script with these caveats that he wanted, like having 5 acts and contained in a house and all those things. Difficult to write, but I certainly knew the goal. And then I came back with the draft, and we were kind of like, it was really well received, I will say, the draft. And before I knew it, like, literally Diane was attached to do it. So she became our matriarch, our patron saint, of this film. And of course, what followed was, you know, all the wonderful actors, and, just riches, from being able to actually make a film like this, which is very unusual, as you know.
Yeah, this was a heck of an ensemble cast. I mean,
Yes.
this was like when I saw the cast list of who was in it, I was just like, holy cow, who are these people playing? And
Yeah.
and
I
I
can't think.
love did so well, and we got to see like these various characteristics of them. Like they go from one side of the spectrum to completely total near opposite. by the end, and it's just like seeing them going through this slow change because of the change, as we call it,
Right.
as it's known in the film. It's like, so it's like
Yeah.
to see that, and then to see how they performed in it. They did such a great job. I mean,
It's amazing. I
and I
mean, you
like,
can't pull this film off without having that. They embody the Taylors, everything that is close about them, everything that makes them individuals, listic from the rest of the family. I mean, it's phenomenal. I couldn't, when Daly started coming back and I started sort of seeing what was happening, it was amazing to me to they just, I don't even know what went into rehearsal or conversations or those text chains at work, but it really felt so authentic to me. So
yeah, it did, especially with Dylan's character,
yeah,
because when you first see him, he's like like the shyest one of the bunch. He's
yeah,
introducing his girlfriend, but yet he has this kind of repression, I felt. And then as the film goes on, he starts to really let everything he's had repressed all these years come out. And we see how he turns out in the end. It's just mind blowing how
yeah,
he goes from the
yeah.
shy, quiet one. And they always say, "Oh, it's the quiet ones who always do this." And I'm like, well, Dylan's character was the definition of the quiet
Yeah.
one.
I think that that's true, probably searching for that purpose and finding it, no matter how misguided or empowering, that sort of thing. Yeah, he's amazing in the film. And he's having such a great year. Just he's got, two other films out. He's phenomenal and he's a powerhouse. I mean, just his arc in this film is just so on point. Like it's just it wouldn't work without that, and how he sort of comes into it with, that idea of feeling very sort of emboldened by Liz, and knowing it's going to disrupt the family and how he feels about that, but and how that kind of grows into something else by the end. And so, anyway, yeah, he's amazing. I would love for you guys to interview him and hear his process because I don't quite know, but whatever he did was incredible.
Yeah, and one of the other things I really loved was it felt like, as you mentioned, it had to do with the whole pandemic and the viruses and stuff. And I also felt like, in a way, I kind of can guess it, but it felt like the climate was becoming more dystopian as it went
Yes.
on. Like it felt like it was feeling like a feeling of they're going to be isolated in a dystopian world, and
Yeah. I
how they're
kind of,
going to react to this world.
yes,
And
exactly.
that's what I was picking up, especially when you see Paul and Ellen just argue over naming a dog.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want to do it, but he's like, name the damn dog. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was like, at one point, I was like, he's gonna snap really bad at this point. And I was right. Like when he does, I'm like, all right, I see where this is going now. And I absolutely loved it. And
Oh,
no,
thank
I'm not
you.
spoiling it, but that finale totally surprised me. Like that was one of the most
Oh.
surprising, jaw-dropping finales I've seen in a while. And I was like,
It's
wow.
definitely loaded. It's definitely, and
Yeah.
the funny the dog scene is like for me, it's the two sides of them. Like, where do you when you feel hopeless, do you give up or are you waiting for someone, for it to change back around? Where do you fall? And I think for a very close couple, like the couple in the Magritte painting, with outside forces pressing down on them, they're very much in love, but it starts to really divide in all levels. And I think that is what kind of the name the dog means in terms of that sequence. And so yeah, so thank you for pointing that out because I think that's a really pivotal moment. And you know what happens like right before there, but it's a pretty pivotal moment.
Yeah,
So for them,
exactly. But
yeah.
overall, this was a fantastic film. Everyone's got to check it out when it comes out on the 29th. It's just mind-blowing, and the cast is phenomenal. So what's next for you after this? Now that this coming out, is there any new projects in the works that
I
you
am
can't talk
writing a
about?
comedy. I'm going complete. My husband and I are working together. He ran the Downey's company for years, and he's made a lot of produced a number of films. We're working together, being independent artists now, back to our roots in film school days. We were making short films. We're back there, though. It's actually really exciting. I think we both feel like it's a great liberating experience to kind of be back there and developing stuff. But we just I It adapted a book by Herman Coe called Summer House with Swimming Pool. It's a dark comedy. It's a really juicy two-character role. It's a little bit in in the area of beef and maybe baby reindeer, like that kind of thing. When we set it up with the studio as a seven-part limited, so there's a lot of work that goes into these things. Take the casting and the sign off from a streamer, all that stuff. But that's kind of our next thing, and yeah, and we're just looking for the things that we're passionate about, like like all of us. So yeah, but it'll be nice to write something completely different tonally. So I wrote the pilot for it, and so that was right after. So that was like, okay, that's a good. So who
Well,
knows where I'll go next?
that's awesome. Well, everyone, check out Anniversary on October 29th in select theaters. This is a fantastic film. If you like an ensemble cast, especially with veterans like Diane Lane and Kyle Chandler and Dylan O'Brien, McKenna Grace, Phoebe Dynevor, everyone's fantastic in this movie. And wait till you see that finale. It's gonna blow your mind away. And Lori, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about the
Thank
movie.
you so much, Albert. I appreciate it so much. It's
You
lovely
take care and
talking to you. I hope to talk to you again.
yep, stay awesome.
All right.